The 700 Club, open for business sooner than predicted. President Trump now saying America's social lockdown will last weeks, not months. Meanwhile, coronavirus infections are surging at unprecedented rates in New York State. The big question is Congress any closer to delivering a relief package? George Thomas has the latest.
With millions of people facing the prospects of losing their jobs and a once booming economy showing signs of deep recession, the president says he wants the country open for business sooner than predicted, even as the coronavirus continues to spread and hospitals brace for a wave of virus-related deaths.
America will again and soon be open for business, very soon, a lot sooner than 3 or 4 months that somebody was suggesting.
The Treasury Department set to release new jobless claims on Thursday. Experts predicting the numbers could be in the millions as more states order all non-essential businesses closed and 1 out of 4 Americans forced to stay home. The president tweeting, "We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem itself," adding that he's going to re-evaluate federal guidelines on social distancing next week.
We can't shut in the economy. The economic cost to individuals is just too great.
On Capitol Hill, gridlock as lawmakers try to come to an agreement on a near $2 trillion aid package.
You know what the American people are thinking right now, Mr. President? They're thinking that this country was founded by geniuses, but it's being run by a bunch of idiots.
Democrats say the plan leans too heavily in favor of corporate bailouts, the GOP accusing Democrats of trying to embed a liberal agenda. Senator James Langford of Oklahoma pushing a charitable giving amendment to the coronavirus aid bill that would allow nonprofit organizations to play an even stronger role in helping our nation's vulnerable individuals and families during this crisis.
The not-for-profits are the bedrock social safety net of our society. The way we're set up as a culture is families take care of families. There are not-for-profits, churches, and entities that are around communities, and then government comes in with assistance where needed at that point.
Congressional leaders and the White House say they're close to a deal and could vote today. The Federal Reserve doing its part, agreeing to buy back government and corporate debt to keep the economy going. Meanwhile, the number of coronavirus cases exploding in the U.S. by 15 times since last week's guidelines were released. New York, now the epicenter, with more than 20,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19, and worries the city could run out of ventilators, masks, and other critical supplies to care for the flood of patients.
We're short on PPE that a lot of folks are short on around the country. Masks, face shields.
The state's governor ordering all hospitals to increase capacity by 50%.
This is going to get much worse before it gets better.
More than 46,000 Americans have been infected with the virus. 593 people have died so far, 125 of those in New York City alone. Alongside those troubling numbers, the economic impact is also starting to take effect. Heather Sells reports how coronavirus policies are affecting small businesses in Virginia.
Like most of the country, here in southeastern Virginia, the streets are quiet and businesses are struggling to keep their doors open. Sweeping new orders from the governor are closing many non-essential businesses for now and restricting restaurants to takeout only. At the Cutlass Grill restaurant in Chesapeake, owner Sean Dawkins oversaw 47 employees just a few weeks ago. Now he is working the line after declining sales forced him to cut a third of his staff.
The staffing is tough and the hours because, everyone have their families that they have to support. So that's a difficult decision. But just for the business to survive is something I had to do.
While his dining room no longer bustles, takeout orders and fist bumping are steady. A few miles down the road, J.B. Anderson is working with half his staff at Texas Street Coffee, a neighborhood pop-up business. Drinks are strictly to go these days.
It's a good sense of normality in their day, that they look forward to it even though they're home quarantined or just sort of on relief right now.
Donna McCartney owns a gluten-free tea room that's now curbside pickup. McCartney says her customers all still crave and are ordering her specialty food.
I'm actually almost busier than I was before.
All three realize their hardship will likely get worse before it gets better. This week's jobless claims report is expected to be historic. Consumer spending for restaurants, entertainment, and retail is already down dramatically, and analysts say it will continue to decline. It's why the Federal Reserve announced Monday that it will begin to lend to small and large businesses to help them weather the crisis. Ultimately, small businesses are depending on their local communities for support that has become essential.
I think supporting local business will not just be like a hipster trend right now. I think it will be something that will sustain small communities and rural communities around the nation right now.
Reporting in Chesapeake, Virginia, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Well, our medical reporter, Laurie Johnson, will be with us in just a moment. But first, Stephen Moore is a former Trump economic advisor and author of Trumponomics. And Steve, could you tell us what the package is that the Republicans are proposing? It's a couple $1 trillion, but how is it composed?
So, hi, Pat. Hope everyone out there is staying healthy, and thanks for having me on again. You know, this aid package, it's too bad we even need this aid package. You know, when we were talking a month ago, the economy was flying so high. We had the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years and high growth. And here we are now in the midst of this crisis. And, you know, President Trump said it very well, I think, the other night when he said that he is a wartime president. He is a wartime president. And the way he put it is we're fighting a war against an invisible enemy, and that enemy is this virus. The Congress is now moving forward with this aid package. And by the way, Pat, it's 1,400 pages long and getting longer every day. I do support providing some short-term relief for workers because, after all, it's the government that shut down the businesses because by government order. So it's appropriate to provide the aid that people need in the short term to get through this. And then, of course, businesses. We have 26 million small businesses in this country, Pat. 26 million. Those are the backbone of the American economy, those men and women who we just heard from on your package, who will make the economy work. They are struggling mightily. Many of them have no revenues now for 3 or 4 weeks. Revenues for a business are the oxygen that keep it alive. So there is a package that would provide loans. I want to be very clear about this, Pat. This is not a bailout. It's not a big giveaway. It's a loan program so that businesses that are healthy businesses can get a loan from the government to get through this next 6 months. They will repay that money. And we need that, Pat, because we want these businesses to be able to hit the ground running as soon as we've stabilized the coronavirus. But I've got to say one other thing about this package. It just disgusts me that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats are trying to turn this into a Christmas tree. And they're putting all of these completely absurd items into that. They're putting in these global warming, climate change things. They want bailouts for union pension plans. They want permanent leave. Those are things that maybe need to be debated, but we got to get this aid out yesterday. It's a scandal that it's taken so long to get this money to the businesses and the workers that need it.
Well, I understand they want to include Planned Parenthood, that any bailouts that Planned Parenthood will be qualified to receive large amounts of government money, and the Republicans say no way. Is that a sticking point?
There are so many sticking points, and you know it's hard for me to even keep up with it because the bill keeps changing all the time. I mean, how hard is it to get this done? You don't need 1,400 pages. You know, you need maybe 100 pages that defines how you're going to give the aid. But there are a lot of people out there that are struggling. You know, we have, this is a scary situation right now. I mean, we have, about 3 or 4 or 5 million people who have already signed up for unemployment insurance. The numbers could go up dramatically, obviously, as the next couple of weeks roll on. It breaks my heart, Pat. I'm on the board of a small company. We have about 40 employees. We're just getting going. And, you know, we had to, in the last couple of days, lay those workers off. It's a terrible thing, you know, to have to lay off workers. And it's happening throughout the economy. And that's why I think the most important thing, Pat, is what Donald Trump said last night in his press conference, where he said, we are going to have a plan to get the American economy up and running in the next few weeks. That has to happen. We can't go 8, 10, 12 weeks without this great American engine of our economy not operating. I mean, there will be tens of millions of unemployed people. There will be millions of business bankruptcies. People will lose their life savings. We need to get the economy up and running again. Obviously, we need to take very prudent steps on the health side to make sure people are safe. But the idea that we're going to keep this economy closed for 3 months, that would be dire. And I say bravo to Donald Trump to starting to take moves to reopen the economy.
The total dimension of the package, are we talking about $2 trillion, a trillion, and $1 trillion and three quarters, or $3 trillion? How much money are we talking about overall?
Well, I don't know if to laugh or to cry, because, you know, every day it seems like the price tag of this goes up, Pat. And, you know, I've got to say something that, look, this aid package has some needed, provisions for people, you know, the $1,000 per household and so on. I think it's now $1,200. That'll provide some short-term relief, and that's necessary for people, especially at the lower income rungs of the ladder and working class people who don't have a lot of savings to draw on. So that's fine. And then they're going to do the aid to the businesses. And by the way, the Federal Reserve Bank yesterday announced they will put new liquidity in the economy. But Pat, it's very simple here. If our businesses are not operating and we're not producing goods and services, it doesn't matter how much money the Federal Reserve prints, and it doesn't matter how much money the Congress appropriates. If there's not goods and services to buy, you know, we're going to run out of things. And so that's why I think Donald Trump is so right to have a plan to get the economy open, especially in areas, you know, look, New York is a special case. New York City is a real problem. San Francisco is a problem. There are some areas of the country where we have some real severe outbreaks of the virus. But other parts of the economy need to be reopened in a smart way. And we have to really, you know, we can't take trillions of dollars of losses. And incidentally, once the coronavirus is stabilized and on a decline, I do believe, I want to sound optimistic here because I am optimistic. I think the economy will boom right back to, it's going to take 6 months to a year, but we're going to get back onto a very healthy pace of growth as we had right before the coronavirus hit.
Well, Steve, I appreciate so much you being with us. And ladies and gentlemen, I echo what he has said. We can't make this into a Christmas tree for all these special interests. It's got to be a package of getting our economy. For example, the airlines are talking about shutting down. We have to have those planes flying. Well, the airlines are looking at $500 billion or more they need to get going. So these are loans. We loan them the money, or we take preferred stock. There are a number of ways you can do it. It's been suggested that we have forgivable loans, and the loans are given to businesses to keep people employed. And if they do it, then after 2 years, that loan is forgiven, which is a good way of doing it. But whatever it is, it's got to be done now. And this political going back and forth has got to stop. The country is in dire need, and you can imagine a man's life savings is being taken away. These small businesses, for example, the hotels are in desperate need. The biggest hotel in New York, the Hilton in New York, the biggest hotel in the whole city, has shut down because several of the employees had coronavirus. Well, what's going to happen to those hotel companies? They need some help. And what about those restaurants? A guy's got 10 or 20 or 30 employees, and he has no customers. I mean, there's a desperate move, and I think it's time we stop fiddling around with this thing and get on with it. And I believe the senator from Louisiana was exactly right. Geniuses put our Constitution together, and now it's being run by idiots. I mean, we can't have that.
It's really shocking. I mean, I just stand back and go, what are Pelosi and Schumer and others who are following their lead thinking? I mean, this is not a time for politics as usual. Yeah. One bill should be being passed that addresses one serious issue, maybe in multiple ways. Nothing attached to it. Just pass the bill. I mean, how hard is that?
All right. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Really?
Well, our CBN medical reporter, Laurie Johnson, is here for more on the latest. And, Laurie, there's some thought that maybe we've gone overboard. We've contained this terrible plague. What's the risk of lifting the social restrictions too soon?
Pat, the primary risk is that the healthcare system, particularly the hospitals, will not be able to handle the number of patients. We know that the United States of America has hands down the best healthcare in the world. We have the smartest doctors, the most technologically advanced equipment like these wonderful ventilators that breathe for us, and now these wonderful drugs that are showing such promise and are showing that they're so effective. But these resources could run out if too many patients flood the hospitals. And that's why yesterday the White House Coronavirus Task Force said, okay, folks, everybody stay in their homes for at least one more week. And then when it comes time for us to venture outside, it's going to be on a very targeted basis, only certain people in certain places.
Why did New York have this problem? Is it because of the crowding of the city?
Probably. Those people are crammed in there like sardines. I love New York. I was supposed to be in New York right now on vacation, but we know that there are 28,000 people in 1 square mile of New York City. And so New York State is the epicenter of the country. In New York State, they have 60% of all coronavirus cases in the country. But then New York City, the greater New York metro area, 1 out of 1,000 people has coronavirus. That's 5 times higher than the rest of the country. And then in New York City proper, it's 1 out of 700. And so Deborah Birx, who's on the White House Coronavirus Task Force, said that she thinks that this has been circulating in New York City for a number of weeks now. And so that's why the Navy ship, the USNS Comfort, is going to be docking in New York Harbor, and why the Javits Convention Center, that giant convention center on the west side of Manhattan, is being converted into a hospital as we speak. So we really need to pray for New York right now, but they're tough. Look at how they handled 9/11.
Well, one last question. What about these new tests that takes 45 minutes? Is there a person that, is there a test you can do for yourself?
Yes and yes. Oh, so this is so exciting. Moving forward, you know, there's an old saying that says you can't manage something you don't measure. And so testing is the very most fundamental thing moving forward. We need to know who has this virus and who doesn't. And so now the market is being flooded with tests. And as of Monday, this coming Monday, there will be these rapid results tests where the results are going to be available in 45 minutes. And then on the back burner right now, the FDA still has to approve it. But some companies have already made tests that they can mail to people's homes, and people can stick the swab up their nose themselves, put it in a container, and send it away. And then you can get results in the mail, which is fantastic as far as the number of people who can be tested. But also that last test saves those PPEs, the personal protective equipment, because you can do it at home. So we don't need to waste all the gloves and the protective equipment of healthcare workers administering these tests.
Thanks, Laurie. Ladies and gentlemen, I know as you're afraid, I want to share with you something every day we need to take heart. And in the 91st Psalm, there are 7 I wills, where God says, because he has set his love upon me, therefore I will. Today is Psalm 91:15. Here's your verse for today. He will call on me, and I will answer him. So don't fear, because the Lord is going to look after you. But if you have a problem, you're out of work, you're losing money, you're whatever, God says he will call upon me and I will answer him. Say it again. I will call upon him and he will answer me. God will answer you regardless of the circumstances. Well, in other news, travel restrictions are stranding airline passengers and leaving airports looking like ghost towns. Ephraim Grimm has more on that.
Pat, lockdowns are affecting travelers around the world. 16 members of a West Virginia church have been stuck in Honduras for 10 days. The Honduran government closed all borders, including the airports. The team from Morgantown Church of Christ tried contacting the U.S. Embassy and the airlines with little success. Team members say they've been told several times a plane is coming in for them, only to have their hopes dashed. The group is safe with plenty of food in their mission's compound, but still don't know when they will get home. The pandemic is shutting down air travel across the globe. CBN contributor Chuck Holton flew home recently and filed this report from those empty airports.
Well, if you're going to practice social distancing, here at the airport might be the best place to be right now because, as you can see, this place is a ghost town. And there are a few flights still leaving from here in Reno, Nevada, where I am, but there are very few people on those flights, and many of them are being canceled. Also, as you can see, the stores and shops inside the airport mostly are closed. That's just because there's nobody here to buy anything. So those employees who are still here to keep the airport running are very grateful, the ones that I've talked to, that they can still come to work, but they may not last very much longer.
Of course, if you just came through security checkpoint, please double check your pockets. You might be missing a pair of keys.
My quick flight over the Sierra Mountains left on time, but with very few people on board. And as we descended into San Francisco, it was clear that normally busy freeways are now almost devoid of traffic. The airlines are losing tens of millions of dollars every day as this shutdown continues. For example, I just landed in San Francisco and the aircraft I was on had 76 seats, but only 9 passengers, and 5 of those were United employees that were repositioning aircraft or trying to get home before they had more shutdowns. The real question is, how long can this go on? Because if it doesn't have a near end date, it may be the death knell for some airlines. All right, so I made it back to Panama within about 24 hours of them shutting down this airport for the next 30 days. And there are obviously a lot of people trying to get in and trying to get out before that happens. This is definitely unprecedented in Panama. As far as I know, it's never happened before. I don't even think the airport was closed for 30 days during the invasion of Panama. As the number of confirmed cases of the coronavirus rises above 250 in this country, Panama is hoping to contain the outbreak by declaring a nationwide shutdown for the next 30 days. Chuck Holton, CBN News, in quarantine in Panama.
Unprecedented indeed. Pat?
What an incredible thing. Well, you've seen it firsthand. Our reporters are there to give you what's happening. Now, an alarming development politically.
Absolutely.